Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the We Know Traders podcast over here on RHAP. I am your host, the Duke of Deception, Pooya and Vakili, ready to break down a brand new day, a brand new cast member of Traitors Season 4 with you here on the pre-premiere party that we are basically having all month long on the road to Traitors US Season 4. January 8th is when things begin, but we have a bit to go till then. Today, we're talking about somebody who I am very excited about. It's someone I know nothing about, but someone who every time her name has come up, people are smiling, people are hyped, those who know her. And I'm ready to be one of those people. And with me today to talk about this person, we're talking about a winner, so I had to bring a winner in my heart, a finalist on Survivor. It is the one and only good friend of mine, Owen Knight, in the building. Owen, how you doing?
I'm great, Pooya. Thanks for having me. And I'm so glad
Yes.
and touched to hear that I'm a winner in your heart. I feel like RHAP was behind me, even though they knew how it was going to crumble on 43. But yeah, Kristen, unlike myself, is an elite winner of her show. And really excited to see her on the Traitors and talk about her here with you today.
Yeah, Kristen has been, and oh, I was not joshing. Kristen's someone that I've seen and heard nothing but positive things about, but I've never heard of her until we get to the Traitors Season 4. Now, granted, I do not watch the main show she's associated with, which makes sense. But to me, it was one of those things where I would have never anticipated someone from a cooking competition show to be praised, to be good at a game like the Traitors. So I'm piqued on interest here.
Yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised when I saw her name pop up on the rumored cast list, the official cast list, because I have been a fan of Kristen since her season of Top Chef, and she has gone on to do some pretty amazing stuff. She famously is now the host of Top Chef, so I do wonder if that is what kind of kicked it over the edge to get her this spot on the Traitors. For those of you who don't know, it is another Bravo show, so in kind of the Peacock NBC family. So that probably played a role, and they do have another season coming up. So maybe a little cross promo, but um, all that being said, it's not like she's just some schlub that they just picked out of the hat from the Top Chef contestants. Like I tweeted about her and I summed it up. She's got that dog in her. I'm excited to tell people more who are unfamiliar about her journey on her season because I think it's a little atypical for a Top Chef winner. And she's been crushing it as the host now as well. And she had really big shoes to fill. So I think she's an excellent choice.
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest endorsements a person can have is being given the keys to host the show that they want, right? It's like amongst all the seasons, all the people that could have taken that spot, we want you there. To me, that
Mhm.
screams you also have personality to deliver. So I think that's great. I think also I love the thing you said about the crossover because this to me truly is the season of the crossover with the amount of people they brought in that bring synergy into some of the other things Peacock NBC has going on. I'm like, okay, I see the vision. And I think that when it's all said and done, I think being the debutant of a franchise on the Traitors is a huge undertaking because if you deliver, they're going to start going back to that well quite a bit. And I feel
Mhm.
like this is a very good pick based on what I've seen and heard. You've got the face of the franchise here to represent the franchise. Should Kristen be good TV? I think she is not the last person we see from that franchise making the way over to the Traitors Castle.
I completely agree. I think you think about Top Chef in kind of two different ways because there's all the chef testants who are doing the cooking and going through this grueling experience. And then there's also all the judges who are,
Hmm.
famous chefs, famous restaurateurs, and they get a little more opportunity to show their personality. And so Kristen has been able to do both, first competing on the show, then being a guest judge, now being the host. So like easily I could see if she does well, do they give Tom Colicchio a ring? Do they call up Emerald? Who knows? Like there is such this wide world in the culinary field that you don't think it's not an instant connection to these social strategy games. Obviously, it is a completely different type of television program, completely different type of personality a lot of the time. But I do think the culinary world is much more cutthroat than you would think. And I think some of the skills that are needed by someone to be a successful chef actually might really translate well to a game like the Traitors. So yeah, I think she's a really perfect first ambassador for this. She's kind of touching on the chef and judge kind of thing, and I hope
Hmm.
she does well. I'm rooting for her for sure.
So, what can you tell me about her run as a contestant on the show? She obviously, I know she won, but What kind of a player was she? What kind of a chef testing was she, if I may?
Yes. So she competed on Top Chef Seattle. And I am, for those of you watching video, I am just going to look just so I get the year right here. But she competed in 2012, 2013, and she was
Okay.
pretty young at the time. 28. Okay, so not as young as I thought, but like still, under 30, still relatively green in the culinary world. But she was coming from a background where she was just sous chef at a pretty acclaimed chef's restaurant. But anyway,
Mhm.
Kristen was a favorite. She was showing immense talent. They kind of had a play in on that season, and one of her best friends did not make it onto the main
Ooh.
cast after getting eliminated in the play in. And so she kind of came in a little more rattled, maybe, than some other people. But what the big story behind Kristen's run on Top Chef is that she has been doing so well, and then there is this milestone in Top Chef known as Restaurant Wars. Pooya, have you heard of Restaurant Wars?
No.
Okay, so for the uninitiated, Restaurant Wars is kind of a hallmark of Top Chef. It's kind of akin to making the merge. Like it is one of the
Mhm.
challenges that folks look forward to. It's known that it's going to be there every season. Typically, it's when there are 8 contestants left, and they form up into 2 teams of 4, and they each have to like ideate and execute a restaurant concept in a
Okay.
very truncated period of time. And because of winning the previous challenge, Kristen was one of the captains of the team, and she was with 3 other women. And then they were facing off against 3 guys, and they each had to come up with their restaurant concept. And I actually rewatched this the other night just so I could remember the details. She called hers Atelier Quan, a take on classical French dining, but reimagined. But the issue, and where I think some of Kristen's personality showed through that could be akin to the
Mhm.
Traitors, the issue is that one of Kristen's teammates is one of the most annoying people I've ever seen on a reality
Oh,
competition
snap.
show. Yeah, this other chef named Josie, who was consistently on the bottom, consistently on the bottom. Kristen was pretty consistently on the top. And essentially, what ended up happening is Kristen's team loses Restaurant Wars. They have a worse service. The judges enjoy their food less. And at the judges' table, where they're discussing who is going to be eliminated, Josie totally throws Kristen under the bus and totally passes the buck of responsibility on to Kristen. Because Kristen was the executive chef. She had planned the menu. She was touching all of the plates, but Josie did
Mm.
not. She totally abdicated all responsibility and said, well, it was Kristen's idea. You should send her home instead.
Damn.
And to their credit, the judges did. But then Kristen went on this magical Matt Elrod esque run on Last Chance Kitchen, Redemption Island, and won
Oh.
5 head-to-head duels, earned her way back into the competition, and then won the whole thing against 2 really great chefs. So she, like I said, she's got that dog in her. She has that comeback spirit. But and I know I'm going long here, and I know this. It's sorry to you for hearing my voice this whole time, but
Oh, you're good.
since you haven't watched, like I thought it was really interesting rewatching and seeing at the judges table where Josie is just totally trying to get Kristen sent home. Kristen literally says, bite my tongue. And I promise you on the Traitors, she will not be doing that again. She learned her lesson. She's going to speak her mind. She will be unafraid of confrontation. She will stick up for herself. So I that made me even more excited to see her on the Traitors after seeing the way that went down and knowing how the rest of the arc played out for her. I think she learned a lot from that experience, and I think it'll translate to this.
I think that is, first of all, you have a knack for storytelling, so do not apologize for that story. Because when you said Matt Elrod run of 5 head-to-head battles to get back, I can't believe, like, that sounds like a very stressful situation to keep
For
cool
sure.
under and then get your lick back on Josie and win the whole thing and then host the
Mhm.
show. Like, listen, maybe I've not been a good enough hater in my life because this is what I would love to be on. Like, this is the ultimate redemption arc. That's amazing. Now,
Mhm.
has she had stints on any other shows or anything else that we would know about?
Well, let's think. She hosts shows now. I don't know if she's competed on other cooking shows or anything, but she has been
Mhm.
guest judges on like Chopped. Um, Something that other people may have seen, the Iron Chef reboot. on Netflix. She is kind of like the field reporter there, and she's down reporting on the action. But as a competitor, I low key kind of respect it. She's like, I won. Like I'm I'm hanging up my knives in that respect.
Hmm.
And she is now focusing on hosting. So this is really the first time I'm getting to see her in another competition capacity. And as I've mentioned, she has that energy, and I'm excited to see her kind of unleash it, which I think will be really cool.
So I'm intrigued real quick, and I know we're talking about Kristen, but I have a bit of a Top Chef question now. Is Top Chef similar to the Survivor of old, where it'll be like Survivor colon location? Is that what happens now?
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. So
Okay.
she was on Top Chef Seattle. They've done a few all-star seasons. They've done returnee newbie seasons. So it is very survivor coded in a sense. And similarly, I think it's viewed as kind of like the premier show in that realm. And obviously people have different opinions on the reality competition realm, but in the cooking world, like Top Chef is the competition in terms of like seriousness of the competitors. You have people with Michelin stars who are competing on Top Chef. So it is kind of like a cream of the crop, best of the best. Like this isn't just some one-off episode of Chopped. Like this is the real deal. Like the casting process, I'm sure, is very intense. So yeah, they go all around the country. They just did one in Canada actually, and then they're doing North and South Carolina on the upcoming season. They did a New Orleans season, which I really enjoyed. So yeah, they go all over the place, and it is cool. They try to bring in some cultural aspects, some food traditions, things like that, local ingredients to try to spice it up every season.
Well, that's sick.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll watch it. I think at this point, because the only cooking show I've ever really watched is Hell's Kitchen. I've never really gone
Mhm.
beyond that, but I also feel like that's
Definitely
kind of
different
like the
energy.
different energy, and I feel like that's kind of like the gateway. That's like the first one
Mhm.
you might walk into. All right. Well, there's a lot more questions for me to ask you, Owen, but in order to do that, we're gonna need a picture of the cast in front of us so we can talk about this a little further. First and foremost, do you see Kristen being a faithful or a traitor?
I definitely think of Faithful. I feel like, not to diminish her abilities, but I think they are often looking for some of those more gamer types or people who are a little bit more Machiavellian in their
Hmm.
ways. So I can see how the housewives are, really thinking about Phaedra, like just thinking about some of the personalities that have been traitors. I can see how a lot of people on this cast would be more of a priority for production to make a traitor. So my money is on Kristen being a faithful.
Yeah, I kind of had a similar read. I feel like Kristen's somebody who, just based off what I had heard before and now here even further confirmed it for me, I think we're looking at a more vocal faithful, a more active
Mhm.
faithful than maybe I'm just going to sit back and let everyone else do things. I feel like Kristen's going to be somebody who's going to try and follow hunches.
Mhm. I agree. And I was thinking about this more in prep for this, but I think her experience as a judge and as the host will actually do her a lot of favors at the round table, because at judges table on Top Chef, they are being asked, the chefs. So in her experience as a chef, she's being asked very pointed questions. Why did you decide to go with garlic instead of shallot on this thing? And like they have to answer on their feet. And obviously it's not about did you tell a lie or not, but it's really like they're getting grilled in a very public setting in front of these people that could it be intimidating to them as well. And then now, as the host and as a judge on the judge's table, she's thinking of those questions to ask, but also she's done a really tremendous job. She's a very empathetic judge. So I think this could play for some interesting interactions on the Traitors, because she has cried sending people home as the host of Top Chef. And I think she has an ability to put herself in other people's shoes. And so I think she'll be someone who isn't afraid to ask those pointed questions, but there could be some interesting television with kind of her struggle to do that, because she feels for people as well. So I think Faithful makes a lot of sense for her.
Yeah, as an empath, like, yeah, you can only be cutthroat for so long before you're like, nah, I kind of feel bad.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely feel that. Now, oh, and you and I know someone very well on this cast. Goes by the name of Rob Sesternino. How do you think him and Kristen will gel, if at all?
Yeah, I think they will. I mean, I think they both seem like, well, I know Rob is an extremely affable person and can get along with anybody, and Kristen seems the same. I don't know, Rob, from my understanding, Rob eats a lot of boring chicken, so I don't know how into the culinary world he
Right.
is. So I don't know if he's going to be fangirling out over Kristen, but I could see them getting along. I do think, I feel like they might have like a mutual respect for one another. Like I could see Rob being intrigued if he were to hear the story of how Kristen won her season of Top Chef. Like I think
Hmm.
Rob might find that interesting and wanting to hear more about how the Last Chance Kitchen Redemption Island situation worked out. I know in the limited experience I've had talking to Top Chef contestants, like I've found it fascinating kind of comparing notes on how production of the shows work and what their experience as a contestant was like. And I think too the connection with him having RHAP and this whole podcast hosting esque empire. I think they have more in common than you would think on paper. How about you? What do you think?
I can see it, I feel like I like both of them as more social people, a little bit more of a chameleon in the room, being able to gravitate towards any kind of personality. So I do like that. I think I could 100% see Rob talking logistics and production and, kind of trying to get a little peek behind the curtain on stuff like that for sure. So I do think that this is a connection I could see. I don't see Rob being like Rob looking at Kristen as like, I don't know if I can trust Kristen. I do see Kristen looking at Rob being like, I don't know if I can trust that man. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
That is a really good point. I do worry about that with Rob. I mean, there are some serious heavy hitters on this cast, but like for folks that jump out immediately as like gamer coded, Rob's at the top or very close to the top of people's lists. So, it's kind of like Survivor All Stars, where he had that reputation of the best player to never win. If Kristen, depending on who Kristen talks to first and what their impression of Rob is, I could see her, being wary of him. That's a really good point.
Yeah, I could see that. Now, I will say there's one connection I know of here between Kristen and someone on this cast. As Kristen made her way over to this man's podcast, not Rob, but Ron Funches.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah. Yeah. This is a podcast from like 4 years ago, also, mind you.
What a
So
pull.
yeah,
Did his
yeah.
homework.
Listen, I try out here a little bit.
That's impressive.
So,
I'm not super familiar with Ron. So what's the deal? Did they get along?
I mean, Ron is one of the most disarming people I have ever watched at all. He is a comedian, and like that's where I first learned about him. And he's just so funny, so easy to listen to talk. So it didn't surprise me that he had a podcast, and it also didn't surprise me that him and Kristen get on well on this pod. I do think that that's at least a connection. They're both going to come like, we know each other. That's pretty good to kick off. So Ron is great. And I haven't behind the scenes, I haven't talked about him yet with the expert, but I think this could be a pairing that's very underrated and very unknown, which could be great.
Nice. I like it. So kind of those like almost like a secret alliance. And I mean, obviously I'm not super familiar with Ron, but I think Kristen also has like more personality than some people might expect. Like I recall her being pretty funny and she has that kind of switch where she goes like goblin mode and she's really intense and obviously in her career path she has to be, but she's also like I said, affable, funny, like willing to goof around. Like I think there is a level of that required to be in the food world. And from what I recall from her season, like, she got along with everyone, cracking jokes. So I could see them two having a good time together for sure.
Are there any other people that you could see Kristen connecting well with if you had to predict?
Yeah, there is one that came to mind, and I promise it's not just because they're both Asian, but Eric Nam and Kristen, they both happen to be Korean. Kristen, like
Hmm.
me, is a Korean adoptee, actually. So she was adopted by white people in America and grew up in Michigan, and is you know grew up is similar to me, where you're weird because you're Asian, and then your parents are white, and it's just this complicated growth process. And Eric actually grew up in the States. I believe he went to prep school in Atlanta, but he has become
Yes.
a K-pop superstar, and kind of had kind of like the reverse experience where now he lives a very like Asian life, growing up in America. So it's an interesting duality there. But Eric appeared on one of my favorite food shows, Somebody Feed Phil, on Netflix. So the man
Yes.
does enjoy the culinary world. So I imagine there will be a little bit of natural affinity, since I don't know if there's any other East Asian people on the cast. So just a quick what's up. But then I think they'll have a lot in common to talk about beyond just their Korean experience.
Yeah, I think that's a mad underrated thing that some people don't think about. It's like it's not even a situation where like we think, oh, they're gonna final two it up and like lock in. It's almost like a just off rip in the very awkward situation. Like, hey, we are similar, and that is
Right.
nice. And just that initial bond can carry over moving forward. But I do think they
Mhm.
do have some shared interests. I did, because I have talked about Eric at this point. I have seen that he was on Somebody Feed Phil. So and like just watching some of the snippets of the material I saw for him, I do think they're personalities that will gel, not clash.
Mhm. I agree. Eric came off to me extremely likable from that
Mhm.
episode. I had never heard of him, and watching that episode, it was the Soul episode of Somebody Feed Phil. He just seems like such a sweetie, like, and he's like uber famous, and he was so chill, so down to earth, like was just having fun, eating fried chicken with the host, and just getting along with Phil, who's this mid 50s white dude, and they were just having a blast. And yeah, I could see them hitting it off and talking about restaurants. And like you said, it's not like you know they're not making any deals just because they're Asian, but yeah, it's comfortable in a situation to just be like, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we'll look out for each other at the beginning, and if we get along, we'll get along. So
Mhm.
yeah, that was one that came to mind for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Lord knows I've had that moment. I walk into a room, like, there's one brown guy. We see each other. I'm like, I give him the nod. He gives me the nod,
Yeah,
and we move on with our lives. And it's like that's just a little comfort right there for me. Yeah, I don't know. Like
exactly.
it's hard to explain.
No,
Um,
I totally get what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah. Well, we're on the same page for sure. Now, okay. So now, obviously, Owen, you have some fellow alum from your show on here.
Mhm.
We've already talked about Rob a little bit. What are your thoughts on Jam Jam from the new era representation, and then having Natalie here? How do you think they're gonna fare this season?
Yeah, so I mean, Natalie to me is a little bit more like I could see the word about Natalie spreading in a more intimidating fashion than the word about Jam Jam, if that makes sense. Obviously,
That's
they're both
fair.
winners, but Natalie's personality is a little bit more intense. So I could see her, and I worry that her reputation might precede her. Like she's a Survivor winner, she's pulled off some insane moves. Like uh, I don't think anyone cares about the physical aspects necessarily, but like Natalie's a beast. Like she's
Mhm.
one of my favorite winners of all time. But I do worry that she'll be like for the folks who want to band together and target the gamers. I do worry that she'll be higher on the hit list with Rob versus someone
Mhm.
like Jam Jam. Because Jam Jam to me, he is so friendly, so kind. Like truly, I've really loved every interaction I've had with Jam Jam. And to really be specific, the way he interacted with Sammy during the airing of 44 and when we were meeting each other in the sister season relationship, just him and Sammy getting along and the attention that he gave her and just like forming a friendship with her that is both a part of my relationship with him but also totally separate. I really appreciated that about him at the time, and it
Mhm.
has continued. And like he's just a sweet man. And yeah, so I could see him being maybe have a little bit more room to play in this game. Have y'all talked about him yet?
I have not yet, but to me, I co-sign everything you're saying, especially with the two of them, because I think the word to describe Natalie, if you're describing Natalie to someone who is unfamiliar with her on Survivor, you she is a badass. That is a
Mhm.
badass right there. And a badass who won $1 million, mind you. So that is definitely infinitely more threatening than Jam Jam, who you can describe him as badass, you can describe him as anything you want. People are gonna meet him and they're going to see friendly and a little goofy. And that's going to
Mhm.
disarm everything. They're going to, like, yes, he won $1 million, but look at he's goofy. Like, he's not threatening to me. He's a fun time. They're going to overlook him. And I think that is a thing that a characteristic that's very underrated in the Traitors Castle is being that person. Um,
Mhm.
Now, what's interesting, and this is something that you and I can maybe talk about a little further here, is that I feel like the other thing that's going to come up for the two of them is, oh, both their closest allies were on last season. Jam Jam's being
Mhm.
Carolyn and Natalie's being Jeremy. Now, where Natalie's is a little inoffensive is that Jeremy went out super early as a faithful.
Right.
Jam Jam's was also a disarming traitor. So maybe that is a problem for him where they're like, you're disarming, but wasn't your closest ally that was here last season disarming? Hmm.
That's a really, really good point. I just wonder though, are they then metaing it, being like, they wouldn't do that 2 seasons in a row? Would they give us the goofy survivor person as a
Right.
traitor to throw us off the scent? Like, I know my head would be spinning in that respect, trying to just like
Same.
think about, just the selection process from the rip. But that's a really good point. Like, even just thinking about what Jam Jam has learned about both sides of the game, having such a close relationship and like co-hosting a podcast with a former trader, like I'm sure he's gotten a very full rundown of
Oh, for
the
sure.
whole experience. So yeah, I'm sure that's a really good point. That could increase his threat level for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole meta game thing is so interesting to me because we've not seen it harm some of these players or some of these franchises yet. But I mean, if they get there and someone's like, listen, so they always have a Big Brother Survivor person, we should to get rid of all of them.
Mm,
That invoice can get paid here. But also, I could see from the traders side of things, they try and like offset that by they're like, we have a lot of crossover appeal here. Let's get some of the other franchises involved in the turret. I could also
for
see it going that way. Um, Now, one last question I have for you here before we start wrapping things up is we've talked about the people we think Kristen will gel with. Who is somebody, if only one, if not more, I would love more. Who do you think Kristen's going to clash with or personalities that you just don't see being a match?
Yeah, I mean, to be completely honest, I'm not super familiar with this whole cast. I don't
Hmm.
watch all of these shows, but I mean, Michael Rappaport comes to mind certainly
Hmm.
as a standout in that regard. He comes off as pretty brash and loud and fiery personality. So I could see them maybe not getting along super well. Um, and yeah, I don't want to speculate too much because I don't know too many of these people. But from what I've seen of Michael's Twitter rants, I could see Kristen maybe being reminded of some, unruly customers at her restaurants or something like that, and not, wanting to immediately, connect with that person.
Yeah. I think just on a soul instinct, that is a great pick. Even if you don't aren't familiar with with any of the cast, that is a great pick for someone who I don't think a lot of people are going to gel with. So we can leave it there. Oh, and is there anybody else you want to speak on before we wrap up here?
No, the only other person I'll mention in the possible positives, I'm not super familiar with the Bachelor franchise, but I was reading a bit about Colton and just about his coming out experience and whatnot. And Kristen is gay; she's married to a woman, and so I don't know. Obviously, Traders has great queer representation every season, but I think his experience of playing in the NFL, coming out late, like doing The Bachelor, dating women when now he's married to a man. I'm sure that is a very like more publicly complicated experience, and so I could
Hmm.
see that being a possible point of connection. And I don't want to pretend that I can speak too much to the queer experience as a straight person, but that is something. Reading his bio, I was intrigued by it, and I imagine that Kristen could find some connection there as well.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because like once all this is said and done and we get our hands on a Rob deep dive, one of the first things I want to ask him is how much downtime do you have and how much can you talk about do you have time to talk about stuff that isn't the game? Because
It's a
it
great
does feel like it's
question.
a very fast-paced game, but I think that something like that could very much be something that either will pique your interest in talking to someone or inquiring about it. And if like, when there's not a lot of you don't have your phones, you don't have a lot you can do there. I feel like stories are really going to be what's going to hold it down. So I
Mhm.
do see something like that being a factor. Unless we are then told, nope, you have no time to think about anything, and it's just a whirlwind of emotions. Like,
Yeah.
okay, well, that's a whole different story.
Straight back to your hotel to get your B-roll in the bathtub, and then you go to bed,
Yeah,
and that's it.
yeah. All
Yeah.
right, spin this globe for me one time. All right, go to bed. Like, that's
Yeah,
all we're
exactly. Sit at the chessboard pensively and just look at it and do your little finger move there.
exactly.
But yeah, no, I mean, that's a really good point. Like, you think about if, like, Colton and Kristen, for example, were on a season of Survivor together and they had all that downtime
They
and they
got
were
time.
just swapping life stories, they'll find some overlap and shared experience there. But yeah, in such a fast-paced game, you wonder if that even has time to come up. So yeah, I'm curious about that. I don't know
Yeah.
personally. So
Like, I wonder if it's like the drive to the mission. If you're in the right car with the right people, there's enough time there. Maybe you're like, all right, so what does everyone do here? Like, maybe
yeah,
you get a little
yeah,
bonding there.
That's a good point. Yeah, because oh yeah, they do film in the car, so that's very unlike Survivor in that sense, where we just sit on the boat in silence and just have to just to mull it over and maybe try to catch a quick nap. So yeah, that could
Yeah.
be like, and yeah, they're not all on the same in the same vehicle, so that could totally have an impact on the relationships if that downtime is at a premium for sure.
Well,
Yeah.
Owen, this has been an absolute treat. Thank you so much for coming on and putting us on to Kristen Kish. I'm excited to see how she fares. And I mean, Loki would love to see you try and get into this castle and try your hand at it in the future. That'd be
That's
lovely.
That's so flattering to hear you say that as the trader's master here. I mean, we've seen on the RHAP clock towers, like I'm like the worst good or the best bad clock tower player there. So like I don't know if the traders is necessarily my game or I'd be great at it, but I do think people could enjoy watching me just totally crash out and just go into these deep mind palaces over the bad decisions I'm making. Like I do think that could be entertaining from that perspective. But no, I'm really excited. I mean, I Sammy and I love watching the traders. It's such a like it's such a simple and fun format, and getting all the
Mhm.
personalities that they do is great. You know, the challenges maybe leave a little bit to be desired, but that's not why we watch the show. You know, we're
Right.
here for, you know, the wheeling and dealing and the betrayal and the sniffing things out. And you know, as you and I have played so much Clock Tower, like it's so front of mind now. So this really will be a fun season and one I'm excited to watch. So I appreciate you asking me to come on. It's always a treat talking with you. And yeah, definitely, hopefully some more Top Chef converters here. I mean, it's one of the best shows out there. And quick plug too for the RHAP Top Chef coverage with Kurt, Latanya, and Haley. We always have a fun time. Some former chef testants have come on there. They usually bring me on once or twice a season, so they love recapping Top Chef for all of you. So definitely give this next season a shot. Check out Kristen hosting.
Hell yeah. And I think to end it, I think that is a great point that you just brought up. We see often since Phaedra, basically, in my opinion, we have seen contestants come on from different franchises and then people start to migrate over to watch those franchises. I've seen Housewife fans convert to Big Brother fans, convert to Survivor fans, Survivor fans convert to binging the entire Housewives franchise. So I have to imagine this is going to be a net positive for Top Chef. I think Kristen's going to be great representation, and I'm already intrigued. The when you started telling me these formats, and it's basically Survivor with kitchen utensils and a stove. Like, listen, I love food. I love Survivor. You put both hands together, I might be happy. So
Yeah, yeah. I'd encourage you to check it out. There, especially some of the earlier season, there's a lot of that interpersonal dynamics as well. They're all living together and they piss each other off. One season, oh my God, they were like they tried to shave this guy's head. Like it was a whole thing. Like they were in it in that like early mid 2000s reality TV verse, and they're still going strong. It's one of my favorite shows, and also too, even if you don't watch the show, if any Top Chef contestants are in y'all's cities and you want to check out their restaurants, like it's always cool, and maybe you get to talk to them and tell them you're a reality fan, and it's always fun to peek behind the curtain and learn about other shows and hear how the sausage gets made. So yeah, it's one of my faves, and I'm pumped to see Kristen and pumped for the season to start.
hell yeah. Well, Owen, if anyone wants to follow what you're doing, keep up with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, I am on, all the platforms. The Young Knight is my handle. Instagram is what I use the most. It's mostly you got to get the ticket to the close friends story so you can see cute baby pictures. And beyond that, just living life. Things are good. We're at almost what are we? Almost 3 months now as a parent, and it's been amazing. So I'm really glad I was able to carve out a little time since Sammy's got the baby with some friends right now. But yeah, feel free to follow. And yeah, I'm just you can hear my horrible takes on Twitter too.
Well, I will be spending the remainder of this road to the premiere trying to fight my way onto Owen's close friends. But until then, you can find me on all socials at Pooyaism, twitch.tv/Pooya. That's where I am when I'm not podcasting. I will be watching along these episodes this season on my Twitch. So if you're around, make sure you pull up so we can watch Rob play this game out together. I will be talking 90 Day Fiance, of course. You know where to find that. You can find me over on the Pooya and Liana Lounge talking to Liana every week. And with Traitors, US isn't the only one I'll be covering. I'm going to be covering Traitors UK as well, which is running from January 1st. So we got two going hand in
Oh,
hand
goodness.
there. And if you are listening to this, depending on when this is dropped, and you're in that middle bubble between, the holidays, and you're like, I'm looking for something to watch, I'm excited about the Traitors, give Traitors Canada a chance. We would have just wrapped up the season. Season 3 was a lot of fun, about 10 episodes, all the podcasts you're looking for, all the exits you're looking for. I've covered all that as well. So make sure you tune in for those. Also had a couple of Survivor alumni there as well. So go check out how that went. Anyway, I hope y'all had a fun time here with us today. I'll be back tomorrow with a brand new person, but until then, take care. Have a good one.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.